Hi everybody, this is City Scrapper. Thanks so much for joining me today for day 30 of Christy's Beautiful Life, 30 Days of Sketches and Scraptember. I can't believe that it's day 30. This is the last day of Christy's Beautiful Life for Series 8 and Scraptember 2021. I have had so much fun doing the series and one more process video to show you. The sketch for today is in the upper left-hand corner, and the Scraptember prompt is family. I often use older collections or very old collections, and today is no different. I'm using a My Mind's Eye collection called Miss Caroline, and I'm using some photos that we took on vacation in Lancaster, Pennsylvania several years back. We're standing at the entrance to an antique store that we're about to go in. We had a lot of fun in the antique store, and I remember it really well to this day. The thing I remember most about this antique store was that they had a scrapbook there, and it was amazing. Somebody had cut out a whole bunch of newspaper articles and included ephemera, and it was a very old and really awesome scrapbook, and I didn't purchase it, but I remember looking at it and thinking how cool it was. I thought it was interesting on this sketch the way the background is split into two parts, and I've made layouts that are like that before, but the split was always on the diagonal, and I don't know why. For some reason, I had to think very carefully about how to approach this, and I'm always thinking about contrast. So my thought was to use two neither very dark or very light colors in the background, and then to use some darker colors and lighter colors in the foreground. And I don't stick 100% to that, but that was my thought when I chose the yellow and the blue papers. I've used this collection quite a few times in the past. The floral paper that I am going to be putting the photos on, that was a smaller piece. I didn't have a larger piece of that, but I think it was just the right size to use for this layout. So I was glad that it was big enough. The photos are about 4 by 4 inches, a little bit smaller. I mounted them on some white cardstock, and then I mounted them again on some peach pattern paper from the collection. And I inked the edges of the papers on this layout with some Distress Oxide in Evergreen Bough. I have my photos popped up on some foam. I attached the photos down to the floral paper, and I used a really pretty, very small flowered pattern for the strips that are above and below the floral paper. And to help this cluster contrast with the background, I mounted it on a ledger paper that was very light in color. And then I found this darker wood grain in the collection, and I thought that this would also help to provide some contrast between the cluster and the background. And I wanted to round the corners just as they were rounded in the sketch, so I took out my Creative Memories corner rounder. I haven't used that in a while, but I do use it every now and then. And then I was thinking that I would also round the corners on the title. I didn't want there to be only one thing on the layout that had rounded corners, so I thought that would be an interesting touch to just round the corners on one side of it. I wanted it to contrast with the background as well, and I didn't want the wood grain to be the only wood grain on the page either, so I mounted the title on a little bit of wood grain. So I adhere the title to the wood grain paper, and then I trim that down and I attach it over the photos. My photos are larger than the photos that are in the sketch. I don't know the exact measurements of the photos in the sketch, but my center cluster, the photo cluster, that takes up a lot more room on my layout than it does on the sketch. So I'm not able to include all of the strips of paper that are on the sketch, particularly below the photo. But that's part of using a sketch. You can adjust it to whatever you are scrapbooking. I had a little border strip that I had punched out using a very small border punch that I have. That was in with the collection, so I decided to make use of it, and I attached that below the photo on the left. So now the photo cluster is attached down and the title is adhered to the page. And now I'm adding a border strip underneath the entire photo cluster that is using a Fisker's scalloped punch, and I thought that would be a nice addition to underneath the photos. Now I'm working on that bottom cluster. I do include the bottom cluster that's on the sketch. It's that middle cluster that I didn't have enough room for. For the bottom cluster, I'm using 3 strips of paper, just as you see in the sketch. And I'm making the configuration pretty much exactly the same, layering the pieces of paper on top of each other. I really liked the sketch. I thought it was a very different sketch, so I wanted my layout to reflect those layered strips that are in the sketch. And on the top of the layout, I add 2 strips of paper next to the title, and I'm using the same pattern papers that I used for the cluster that's on the bottom. I just wanted to mention how much I have loved participating in Christy's Beautiful Life 30 Days of Sketches and Scraptember. And I just love the way in the scrapbooking world that a challenge is really just challenging yourself to accomplish something. I love that. And I think the next set of sketches will be out in March, and I already can't wait. Getting back to the layout, I wanted to include a circle on the top of the layout the same way the sketch has a circle. So I use my Creative Memories circle cutters, my tried and true favorite way of cutting out a circle. And I cut a very small circle and attach that down. I really wish Creative Memories would come out with circles that are different sizes. I absolutely love these cutters, but there are a few sizes of circles that I can't cut with these cutters, and I wish that they would make a few different sizes. I don't know if that would ever happen, but that would be something that I would love to see. I'm adding some photo corners to my layout, something that I love to do. I use an EK Success scalloped photo corner punch, and I punch out some yellow photo corners, and I don't put them in every corner. I just put them in 2 corners, and you could see that I put them in opposite corners on each of the photos. I attach all those photo corners down, and then I was thinking that it would be nice to have a scallop on the top too. So I punched out another strip of that peach paper, and I liked the way that looked, so I attached that down. I was thinking that since my layout has a kind of a country vibe to it with all the papers and the stone that's in the photo, that it would be nice if I cut some of the strips of paper into banners. So I decided that on the top I would cut that plaid piece of paper into a banner, and then on the bottom I picked up that blue strip and I decided to cut a fishtail on both sides of that strip. And it was a really small change, but I really like the way the cluster on the bottom looks now with the fishtails on either side of that blue strip rather than just having it straight. Now I have all of the major elements of the page in place and attached down, and I wanted to add some embellishments. And I thought that, again, since there was a country-ish vibe to this, that flowers would be a good addition. Although, who am I kidding? I add flowers to almost every layout, but I decided that that would also be a good choice for this layout. You just saw me ink some die-cut leaves using some Distress Oxide in Evergreen Bough. I'm going to use some die cuts that were inked, and I'm going to use some die cuts that I'm going to leave white. I have some white flowers in my stash, so I picked out a bunch of them that I thought would look nice on this layout, and I arranged them in clusters in the same places that on the sketch there are stars. So I am substituting flowers for stars. I thought it would look nice to layer the leaves. I put white leaves on the bottom, and then I'm layering some green leaves over the top of them. That helps the leaves stand out from the background. And I slightly offset the leaves so that they're not laying exactly on top of each other, and that way you can see the white underneath just a little bit. At first I was going to have one cluster where the white was on top, but then I changed my mind. I like the way the white looks on the bottom and the green looks layered on top of it. So I'm committing now to those flowers, and I'm using some gel glue, and I'm attaching them down along with the leaves. And I don't show you all the footage of me gluing the clusters down, but I do go around to each of the clusters on the layout, and I glue all of those pieces down. The cluster on the bottom looked a little lonely. It was the only one that didn't have any leaves, so I decided that I was going to add some leaves to that cluster as well, although I'm only going to use the smaller leaves, the smaller branch from the die cut that I'm using, so that it will match the rest of the layout, but it won't be overpowered by having leaves that are too large for the flowers that are there. I'm adding some more leaves to the larger cluster that's on the right-hand side of the layout as well. So I layer the leaves together and I put some glue on them and I stick them into that cluster. I add the date, which was August 1st of 2015. I definitely have a lot of catching up to do, trying to get some of these older photos scrapped. I have been making a dent in them recently, but I have a long way to go. I wanted to add something else to the layout. I felt that there was something missing, and as I was flipping through the paper pad that I have, I noticed there was a whole sheet of butterflies. So I fussy cut out a number of butterflies in different colors, and I popped up their wings on some foam, and now I'm just kind of sprinkling them around the layout, and I'm keeping them near the flowers and the flower clusters. There is one butterfly next to that very small flower that's on the title, and the rest of the butterflies are just flying around the flowers that are on the layout. And I really love butterflies. I feel like they add such a nice touch to any layout, and I particularly liked on this layout the addition of coral. There is some peach color on the layout already, but this is more of a deep coral color, and I just like the way that brightened up the whole layout. Now that I have all of the butterflies on the layout, I was thinking that I wanted to add something to the centers of them. Off to the left, you could see there are pearls that almost form the shape of a butterfly. Unfortunately, when I got this kit a while back, a long time ago, the butterfly was already damaged, so I can use those pearls for touches around the page. I also had some pearls in teal, so I added some teal pearls to the center of some of the butterflies, and then these coral ones to the centers of the other butterflies on the page. And I really love that touch. And that completes this layout. Here are some close-ups. This also completes Christy's Beautiful Life, 30 Days of Sketches Series 8, and Scraptember 2021 for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you've enjoyed this event. I've really enjoyed participating, and I can't wait to do it all again next time. Take a look in the description box. There are links to all the other scrapbookers' Instagram accounts and YouTube channels, and I hope to see you on my channel again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.